The rain fell hard on the city that night. Daniel walked alone, his shoes soaked through, his stomach empty. He had not eaten in 2 days. The streets were empty. The cold cut through his thin jacket like a knife. Then he saw it, a leather wallet sitting on the wet sidewalk. Daniel bent down and picked it up. His hands were shaking, not just from the cold. He opened it slowly. Cash. Stacks of it. More money than he had seen in years. And there, tucked behind the bills, was a black card. A name was printed on it in gold letters. Richard Cole. Daniel's heart pounded. Everyone in the city knew that name. Richard Cole was one of the richest men in the country. This wallet could change Daniel's life forever. He could disappear. He could eat tonight. He could sleep somewhere warm. But something inside him whispered louder than his hunger. If you believe honesty still matters in this world, hit that like button right now. Daniel closed the wallet. He looked up at the tall glass building in the distance. His decision would change 2 lives forever. The rain did not stop. Daniel stood there, holding the wallet close to his chest. His mind raced. He thought about his mother. She died 5 years ago. But her words still lived inside him. A good name is worth more than gold, Daniel, she used to say. He remembered her soft voice. He remembered her hands, tired from years of hard work. She never had much, but she never took what wasn't hers. Not once. Daniel wiped the rain from his face. He made his decision. He would return the wallet. He asked a stranger for directions. The man looked at him with disgust and walked away without a word. Daniel was used to this. People looked through him like he was invisible. Like he did not exist. He walked for miles. His feet ached. His clothes clung to his body, heavy with rain. But he kept walking. Finally he saw it. The Cole Tower. It rose into the sky like a giant made of glass and steel. Lights glowed from every window. It was everything Daniel was not. Rich, powerful, untouchable. He stepped inside, dripping wet. The lobby was warm and bright. People in expensive suits stared at him. A woman gasped and stepped back like he carried a disease. 2 security guards moved fast. Their eyes were hard. "You can't be in here," one guard said. His voice was sharp. "I need to see Richard Cole," Daniel said. His voice trembled, but he stood his ground. "I found his wallet." The guards laughed. It was a cruel sound. "Sure you did," the second guard said. "Get out before we call the police." Daniel felt his face burn with shame. He was used to being judged, but this still hurt. It always hurt. "Please," Daniel said. "Just call upstairs. Tell them what I have." The guards grabbed his arms. They pushed him toward the door. Daniel did not fight back. He never did. Fighting only made things worse for men like him. Then, a woman's voice cut through the noise. "Wait." She was Richard Cole's assistant. She had sharp eyes and a calm face. She looked at Daniel, then at the guards. "What did you say you have?" she asked. Daniel held up the wallet. His hands still shook. "Mr. Cole's wallet," he said quietly. "I found it on the street. There's cash inside. And his card." The assistant stared at him for a long moment. Something in her eyes changed. Maybe it was doubt. Maybe it was curiosity. "Wait here," she said finally. She disappeared into the elevator, leaving Daniel standing in the lobby, soaked and shaking, surrounded by strangers who still would not look him in the eye. If you have ever been judged before people even knew your story, drop a comment below. Let Daniel know he is not alone. The elevator doors opened again. This time, everything was about to change. The elevator doors slid open. Richard Cole stepped out. He was tall, dressed in a dark gray suit that cost more than Daniel would earn in a year. His face was serious, cold, the face of a man used to being obeyed. He walked straight toward Daniel, his eyes sharp with suspicion. "You have my wallet?" Richard asked. His voice was flat, guarded. Daniel nodded and held it out with both hands, like an offering. Richard took it slowly. He opened it right there in the lobby, in front of everyone. He counted the cash. His eyes moved fast, checking every bill. It was all there, every single dollar. Richard looked up, confused. This never happened. Not in his world. People took. People lied. People always wanted something. "Why didn't you keep it?" Richard asked. His voice was quieter now, almost soft. Daniel looked down at his worn-out shoes. "My mother taught me that a good name matters more than money," he said. "I may have nothing, but I still have that." The lobby went silent. Even the guards stopped whispering. Richard studied Daniel's face for a long moment. Something shifted behind his eyes. A memory, buried deep, began to surface. He remembered another rainy night years ago, before the suits and the skyscraper, before the money. Back when he had nothing too, he remembered sleeping on a park bench. He remembered hunger that never seemed to end. Nobody in this building knew that story. Richard had buried it deep, along with the boy he used to be. But looking at Daniel, that boy suddenly felt very close. "What's your name?" Richard asked. "Daniel." Richard nodded slowly. He glanced at his assistant, then back at Daniel. "Come with me," he said. "Let's talk." The guards exchanged shocked looks. This never happened. Richard Cole did not talk to strangers. He did not trust easily. He built walls around himself, brick by brick, year after year. But something about Daniel's honesty cracked something open. They sat in Richard's private office on the top floor. The city lights sparkled below them, like scattered stars. Daniel had never been this high up before. He had never sat in a chair this soft. Richard poured 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Daniel without hesitation. "Most people would have run," Richard said. "Most people would have disappeared with that money." "I thought about it," Daniel admitted. "For a second. But it wasn't mine." Richard leaned back in his chair. He studied Daniel carefully. There was something in this man's eyes. Something real. Something Richard had not seen in years, surrounded by people who only wanted his money and his name. If this story is touching your heart already, hit subscribe, so you never miss a moment of what happens next. Richard did not know it yet. But this rainy night would change everything he thought he knew about trust, about people, and about himself. Richard made a decision that night. He offered Daniel a job. Nothing fancy, just maintenance work in the coal tower, cleaning floors, fixing things, staying out of sight. But it came with something Daniel needed more than anything, a paycheck. And a small apartment in a building Richard owned. Daniel stared at him, unable to speak. His eyes filled with tears he refused to let fall. "Why are you doing this?" Daniel whispered. Richard looked away, toward the dark window. "Because someone should have done it for me once," he said quietly. "And no one did." That was all he said. But it was enough. Daniel started work the next week. He showed up early every single day. He worked hard, he never complained. And slowly, something unexpected began to grow between them. A friendship. Richard found himself stopping by to talk to Daniel during late nights at the office. They would sit in the empty cafeteria, drinking coffee, talking about life. Daniel spoke about his mother, about the dreams he once had. Richard talked too, more than he had in years. He told Daniel things he never told anyone. About the fear that lived inside him. About the loneliness that money could not fix. For the first time in a long time, Richard felt seen. But he kept it all a secret. He never mentioned Daniel to his colleagues. He never told his daughter, Victoria, about the homeless man he had given a second chance. When people asked about the new maintenance worker, Richard changed the subject fast. He was afraid of their judgment. Afraid they would think he was weak. Afraid they would think Daniel was using him. So he hid their friendship like it was something shameful. Daniel noticed. Of course he did. When Richard passed him in the hallway during business hours, Richard barely looked at him. He acted like Daniel was just another employee, nothing special, nothing important. It hurt. But Daniel understood. Men like Richard lived in a different world. A world with rules Daniel would never fully understand. Still, late at night, when the building emptied, Richard would knock on Daniel's small apartment door. They would talk for hours. About everything and nothing. About who they used to be before life broke them down. If you have ever had to hide a friendship because you were afraid of what people would think, leave a comment. You are not alone. Months passed. Their bond grew stronger. But the secret grew heavier too. Richard's daughter, Victoria, started asking questions. She noticed her father smiling more, staying late at the office more, acting different, and Richard's business partners began to wonder too. Whispers started. Suspicion crept in like shadows. The truth could not stay hidden forever. And when it finally came out, everything would explode. Victoria Cole found out by accident. She came to the office late one evening to surprise her father with dinner. She saw them through the glass wall of the cafeteria. Her father and a man she did not recognize. They were laughing, talking like old friends. She asked security who the man was. "Just the maintenance guy," the guard said. "Daniel something. Your father hired him a few months ago." Victoria's eyes narrowed. Her father did not laugh with maintenance workers. Her father barely laughed at all. She started digging. She asked questions. She followed Daniel after his shift one night. She discovered where he used to sleep before Richard gave him the apartment. She found people who remembered him from the streets. And then she told the board of directors. The meeting happened on a cold Monday morning. Richard sat at the head of the long glass table, surrounded by men in expensive suits. Men who built empires with him. Men who trusted him with their money. Victoria stood at the front of the room, her arms crossed. Her face was hard. "I need to address something," she said. Her voice was sharp. "My father has been hiding a relationship with a formerly homeless man. He gave him a job, an apartment, access to this building." The room went silent. Richard's jaw tightened. His hands curled into fists under the table. "Daniel returned my wallet," Richard said carefully. "He deserved a second chance. Or he saw an opportunity." Victoria shot back. "Dad, wake up. He is using you. He found your wallet and played the honest man so you would feel sorry for him. And it worked." One of the board members leaned forward. His name was Marcus Green. He was older, gray-haired, ruthless. "Richard, this is a liability," Marcus said coldly. "If the press finds out you are keeping a homeless man on payroll out of sentiment, they will tear you apart. They will say you have lost your edge, that you have gone soft." "I do not care what they say," Richard replied, but his voice shook slightly. "You should care," Victoria said. Her eyes were fierce. "Because this is not just about you. This is about our family name, our company, everything we built." Another board member spoke up. "We need to distance ourselves from this situation. Immediately. Fire him. End the connection. Protect the brand." Richard stood up fast. His chair scraped loudly against the floor. "Daniel is not a situation," he said. His voice rose. "He is a good man." "You do not know that," Victoria said quietly, almost sadly. "You want to believe it, but you do not really know him. If your heart is breaking for Richard right now, hit that like button." The room pressed in on Richard like a closing fist. He looked around at their faces, cold, calculating, waiting for him to choose his empire or his friend. Richard made his choice. That same afternoon, he called Daniel into his office. Daniel walked in with a smile. He had no idea what was coming. "Sit down," Richard said. He could not look Daniel in the eye. Daniel sat. The smile faded. He knew that tone. He had heard it before from other people, in other moments when everything fell apart. "I think it is best if you move on," Richard said slowly. His voice was flat, empty. "I will give you 3 months' pay, a good reference, but you cannot work here anymore." The words landed like stones. Daniel stared at him. His chest tightened. "Why?" he asked quietly. "It is complicated," Richard said. "Business reasons. You would not understand." "Try me," Daniel said. His voice shook now. Richard finally looked up. His eyes were cold, distant. The same eyes Daniel saw on strangers who walked past him on the street, like he did not matter, like he was invisible again. "This was always temporary, Daniel," Richard said. "You knew that. It was a lie. They both knew it. But Richard said it anyway." Daniel stood up slowly. His legs felt weak. His hands trembled at his sides. "I thought we were friends," Daniel whispered. Richard said nothing. He just looked down at his desk, his jaw tight. Daniel waited, hoping Richard would take it back, hoping he would say something real, something true. But Richard stayed silent. And in that silence, Daniel heard everything. He heard the truth he had been too hopeful to see. Men like Richard did not stay friends with men like him. Not really. Not when it mattered. Daniel turned and walked out. He did not say goodbye. If you have ever been abandoned by someone you trusted, drop a comment below. Let Daniel know you understand his pain. That night, Daniel packed his few belongings into an old backpack. He left the apartment keys on the counter. He did not leave a note. There was nothing left to say. He disappeared into the city, back into the shadows where men like him were forgotten. Richard tried to call him the next day. The number was disconnected. He sent his assistant to check the apartment. It was empty. Daniel was gone. No forwarding address. No trace. Just gone, like he had never existed at all. Victoria breathed a sigh of relief. The board members nodded their approval. The problem was solved, but Richard could not sleep. He stared at the ceiling every night, replaying that moment in his office. The look on Daniel's face, the way his voice broke. He had protected his empire, but he had lost the only real friend he had. And now Daniel was gone. Would Richard ever see him again? 3 weeks passed. Richard could not focus. He sat in meetings but heard nothing. He signed papers without reading them. His daughter noticed. His employees whispered. But he did not care. All he could think about was Daniel. The guilt ate at him like poison. He remembered Daniel's face, the betrayal in his eyes, the way he had walked out without fighting back. Because Daniel never fought. He just accepted pain like he always had. Richard had become just another person who hurt him. He could not live with that, so he started searching. He hired a private investigator. He visited shelters. He walked the streets late at night, looking at every face, hoping to see the one that mattered. Nothing then. On a cold Saturday morning, Richard found him. It was not a shelter. It was a small community kitchen on the east side. Richard walked in and stopped cold. Daniel was there, handing out sandwiches, talking softly to a woman with a child, smiling like he used to smile. Richard's heart cracked open. He walked over slowly. Daniel saw him. The smile faded. His whole body went still. "What do you want?" Daniel asked. His voice was guarded now, careful. "To say I am sorry," Richard said. His voice broke. "I was wrong. I was a coward. I chose money and reputation over the best person I have ever known." Daniel looked away. "You made your choice." "I did," Richard said, "and I have regretted it every single day since." He stepped closer. People were watching now, but Richard did not care. "You gave me back my wallet when you had every reason to keep it," Richard said. "You showed me what real integrity looks like, and I repaid you by throwing you away like you were nothing. But you are not nothing, Daniel. You are everything I forgot how to be." Tears filled Daniel's eyes. He tried to blink them back. "Why are you here?" Daniel whispered. "Because I want to make this right," Richard said. "Not in secret this time, not hidden. I want the world to know who you are, what you did. I want to build something together. A foundation, to help people like us, people the world forgot." Daniel stared at him, searching his face for lies, for tricks, but all he saw was truth. If you believe in second chances and real redemption, subscribe and hit that notification bell. This is what love and friendship look like when they are real. Richard held out his hand, and after a long, breathless moment, Daniel took it. They built the foundation together. Richard told the world Daniel's story, his honesty, his strength, and in doing so, Richard found something richer than all his money. He found himself again. True wealth was never about what you own. It was always about who you become, and who you choose to stand beside when the world is watching.